So here we've got the agenda, and essentially we're going to go through creating custom user-defined fields so that you can create context with secondary field information around your contacts. We're going to go through managing those and putting them into what we call key field lists. That way you can have those fields right at your fingertips in the main form in the details tab. We're also going to talk about setting up sales opportunities, how you set them up, how you set up the different processes for them, as well as using the pipeline reports. The opposite of the opportunities is the customer service cases, those things that you want to keep track of in between when those sales take place, how responsive you are. So we'll go through setting up, creating those customer service cases from different places, right from the contact record, as well as within the customer service window. We're also going to talk about the notification manager. What this does is it gives you a place where you can have visible indicators of changes that have taken place in the database. So if you're the sales manager, for example, you'll be able to see when an opportunity is created with a revenue of greater than X number of dollars. Like if it's over $50,000, please show me a visible notification through the notification manager on my desktop. And lastly, we're going to go through the smartphone tool. Now this tool is for your smartphone devices and tablets. It's a miniature version of Maximizer. We're going to go through how you can access that and some of the basic functionality. So we're going to move on from there. We'll just open up the database.
I'm just going to pull up one record. So hopefully some of you, if not all of you, have taken the basic class, so I don't need to go through how to set preferences. But just as a quick reminder, today I'll be looking at the address book. We'll also briefly be looking at opportunities and customer service cases. So I've got those visible on my icon bar. If you've forgotten how to do that, that's essentially from in the preferences, and you'd click on this customize icon bar to add those items to your list. So creating custom fields would allow you to think about the purpose of a field and what kind of information you want to store in that field. There are 7 different types of custom fields, allowing you to create everything from dates to fields that show a formula and fields that allow you to pick from items from a list if you want to generate a list of items that people can choose from when they're going to that field. Prior to putting together new custom fields, I always encourage people just to take a piece of paper and jot down the purpose of the field, what you think the label on the field should be called, and what type of field you might use. So if I were to say, for example, have one of my contacts here, I'll just bring up Manny Portez, and I go to his details area. I might think about this as a customer or potential customer, and I might think about the questions I might want to ask or might want to know and think about when I'm looking at this particular customer or potential customer. And in that process, you got to think about your business processes. Maybe in the process of acquiring a customer, you need to think about the processes of maintaining or helping that customer so that they can continue to use your products or services. And there might be areas where you're talking about keeping track of details about billing for that customer, and there might be an area for considering how you grade your customers, like how you might score or segregate your customers into different segmentations, pardon me. I always encourage people to start simple, and if you think you need additional fields, always think about how you want to set them up, what type of field they are, and what you're going to label them. So you can set up user-defined fields through the administrator module in the Setup User-Defined Fields area. You don't have to be an administrator, contrary to popular belief. You don't have to be an administrator to set up user-defined fields. If you are an administrator and you have this administrator option here in the administration area, you can get to your Setup User-Defined Fields through here. And you'll notice there's this user-defined fields. This is just another word for custom fields. It's a big long word. If I go to the area and I click on address book right there, I get the list of all the existing fields that are in the database. I can also take the direct route and go directly to set up user-defined fields here, which is where I'm going to operate today. In the setup user-defined fields area, if you have a bit of a sense as to what fields you want to set up, you can go right to it. You'll notice there's some buttons across the top here, and you basically know which module in Maximizer you're creating the user-defined fields for. Depends on which tab you've selected. So you can do them for email campaigns, customer service, revenue opportunities, and the basic address book contact and company information. The different types of user-defined fields are designated by different icons. If I want to add a new field, I simply go here. And as you can see, there's 7 different types of fields. So I'm going to start with the simplest one. It's a yes/no field. So if I wanted to add a yes/no field, often the yes/no field is used for scenarios where you want to say, is this an active customer? Yes or no? Or does this contact own a cottage or a cabin somewhere? Yes or no? Do they qualify for credit terms with our organization? Yes or no? So it's going to be yes or no. There's no maybe or unknown. It has to be selected as either yes or no. So we'll create a yes/no field. And when I create the field, you can organize them into folders. So you'll notice there's a master folder here. Then we've got these folders here. And these are fields that are just sitting outside of folders. There's a folder button here. Let's create a folder for today's training. We'll call it, is it March 28th already? March 28th. And we might just say customer details. And you just go save. And it creates that folder. And if we want to move that folder around, we can just use the move up button and or move down. So with that folder selected that we just created, you can click the add yes/no field, and we'll say this is active customer. And the yes/no field can be applied to companies, individuals, or contacts. And we designate that by a checkbox next to one of those. You can make it mandatory, which means every time a record is, if a record's edited, let's say we added this yes/no field today. If someone went in to edit the phone number on a record, this field being set to mandatory, they'd have to fill in the is this a current customer, yes or no field. Otherwise, they could not save the other changes they made to the record. We're not going to make this mandatory today. We could set it to hidden. Essentially, Maximizer can have a full set of fields where you can set them to hidden. Say if they're not frequently used, or maybe you don't need them visible all the time, you can set it to hidden. And a simple toggle will toggle on all the hidden fields on or off. We'll make this field public, and if you recall, when we look at the full access rights on a record, we can have them as either public, they can be private to ourselves, if your database administrator has allowed you to have private records, or you can have them assigned to what's called a security group, and a security group is a group of people who'd have access to this. We're going to set this to public, and we just click save. That's the first type, the yes/no field, and we're going to show them fully filled out in just a moment. The second type of field we're going to create is something called a table field. So a table field gives you a list of items or a table of items which you can choose from. So when you go to that field, you may have a drop down and you get to check off the item that works best for that situation. Let me show you what that looks like. So we add field, select table field. We're going to call this places this contact likes to eat at. Something simple like that. I try to make this fun. So places this customer likes to eat at, so if I have to take them out to lunch, then we know where they want to eat or where they preferred last time. I can apply this to all company records, individuals, or contacts. I could make this a single value only table field. In other words, let's say I had 7 items in the table, the list in the drop-down to pick from, and I could force someone to only check off one. This is particularly useful in settings like where selecting only one is really critical. Like, for example, if you were selecting someone's blood type and you're in a medical environment, you wouldn't want to let people choose more than one option for their blood type because that would be confusing. So we won't set this to single value only. We won't hide it. Mandatory. So mandatory fields, again, Essentially, you can force people to always fill in this field as soon as they get into the record to edit it. This is great for data entry if you want to force data into the system to be entered in immediately when the record is created. Mandatory based on a rule would suggest that if you'd like, you can say, okay, if this other field over here gets filled in, then this one becomes mandatory. And the rule would be, say, if this one over here gets filled in, then this field it clicks in and becomes mandatory. We won't do that today. Click Save. I'm going to leave that as public. And we've got our table field. Now this is a table without any items in it. In other words, if we were to look at this field, it would be an empty list. So we need to add some items. Adding items to a table field is really simple. You just go up to this button here. When you click on it, you get to add items. So we could say they like to eat sushi. We could say they like steakhouse. You could say vegetarian. Or you could actually put the names of the restaurants they like to go to. Fast food. And you can put in as many items as you like. As you can see, changing the orders of the items is quite simple. You can reset the order if you get a big long list and you want to put it into alphabetical order so people can find things faster. You can click the reset order button. It says, warning, if you click OK, it will reset the order of all items for the current table user defined field. Are you sure you want to continue? OK. It essentially puts it into alphabetical order. Okay, so when you're happy with your list, you can always go back and modify this list. You just click close. Anytime you want to go back in, you just click on that field. Here again, once again, we're in the setup user-defined fields area. The next type of field we're going to create is a numeric field. So a numeric field is essentially a field that is a numeric string, can have decimal places. It's often the type of field that's used for currency amounts or dollar amounts. And you can have as many decimal places as you like. So let's go ahead and create a numeric field for estimated first year spend. So this might be the amount that we anticipate this customer is going to spend with us in the first year. We can apply this to all companies, individuals, and contacts. We won't set it to hidden. We will display a currency symbol, and we can put in 2 decimal places. Remember to put those decimal places in when you're first creating the numeric field, in this case a currency field. Once you hit save on this, you cannot modify the number of decimal places. So make sure you put that in. You can have as many decimal places as you like. If it's a scientific number or some sort of a number used for factoring or calculation, you can have as many decimal places as needed. We won't make it mandatory or mandatory based on a rule, and we'll set it to public. When we're happy with that, we just click Save. The next type of field, we're going to jump over these two, and we'll come back to them in just a moment, the formula and duration. We're going to go up to the alphanumeric field. So an alphanumeric field is essentially a free-form field. You can type whatever you like in. It is great for writing a note. If there's a special note pertaining to another field or another piece of information, an alphanumeric field is great because you can put up to 255 characters in that field. So let's say this was a field for describing maybe particular dietary requirements of this customer contact. So we'll say comment on favorite food. So again, this is a free-form field. The alphanumeric field type, you can type whatever you like in. That is its major upside. The other consideration is if you're going to have to search on this field, and people can write whatever they like, while it still can be searched upon, it's not going to have exact values in this field to search on. So you might not want to use an alphanumeric field for exact values. Like an example would be, let's say somebody lives in California and you wanted to put in a field that says where they live. An alphanumeric field wouldn't be great for showing the state of California because sometimes people type out the word California. Other times people just, put in CA and so forth. So having a table field where people can choose an item such as CA as an abbreviation for California is much more effective than using an alphanumeric field for something that's very exact. Okay, we're going to apply this type of field to all company records, individual type records, and contact type records. We have an option here to create another layer of encryption on this. We don't get into that today. If you have any questions about that, you can always talk to our support department. But essentially, we can display this as a hyperlink. So an alphanumeric field is the type of field you typically use for any special social networking or web location fields. And what happens is a hyperlink is actually more of an object than it is an actual string of text, so you lose the maximum field length of 255 characters. So hyperlinks, as you know, can be extremely long, so it just ignores the field length on a hyperlink. And if we wanted, we could set this to hidden if we didn't use it very frequently or just wanted to hide it, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to make it mandatory. And essentially, just by making this public, everybody will be able to see it. And so here is our settings for an alphanumeric field. So we can click Save, and we've created 4 different types of custom fields. The next type of field we're going to create is a date field. So again, I just go to this, add date. And date fields, of course, are great for things like lease and dates. They're great for birthdays, anything that involves a date. I'm going to use an example here of incorporation date. So if I'm in a business where I work mostly with incorporated businesses, or maybe the majority are, I might want to have a field for incorporation date. I can apply this to companies, individuals, and contacts. That's totally open to you, however you want to apply it. Date fields have this 1 or 2 unique things in terms of their attributes. And the first one we look at is what we call include in hot list. And what this does is it creates a task for that date in the hot list tasks. So if your date was a reminder of some sort, like next certification date or something like that, and you want to put a reminder to give that person a phone call, you could use this include in hot list option. Date can be an annually recurring event. When we check that, we essentially we drop the year relativity on the date. That's handy for sort of things that are anniversaries of sort. If we check this retain year, you can maintain the annually recurring event, but also retain the year in the field. And we also have the option to set it to hidden if we want. So we're going to retain the year on this because it's an incorporation date. We're not going to make it mandatory or mandatory based on a rule, and we're going to set it to public. It's that simple. Okay, we're going to click Save. So the last 2 types of fields here that you can add, there's one called a duration field and one called a formula field. We're going to look at the formula field first. So formula field basically says I want this field to show some sort of a value that represents a calculation on other fields. This is handy, as long as you have the other fields in your user-defined fields or custom fields area in Maximizer, you can perform a calculation around that data by picking the field. We're going to do that in just a second. We can apply this to all companies, individuals, and contacts. And I'm going to create a formula. It's going to be called 5-year estimated spend with our company. It can be this simple. I can literally go into this formula box and let's say I want to go 5 times. I can go 5 times, and then I get to insert the field. And I pull out this field that I created for estimated first year spend. And I just click OK. And it's taken that field and put it into my equation. So you can do much, much more complex formulas here. And you basically pick the outcome. So this one's actually going to be a dollar amount, so we want it to be numeric. Now we're going to display the currency symbol, and we're going to put 2 decimal places in there. We're going to make it public. And so this is really useful. You can actually do formulas around cumulative amount, so number of records with a certain field filled in. I've seen that done. You can identify just a variety of other elements in your formula fields. If you have any questions about the formula fields, you can call our support department and ask to speak with one of the analysts who basically are experts at different mathematical formulas. Okay, when you're done, you just click Save there, and you'll notice the formula fields just take an extra moment to save. The last type of user-defined field we're going to take a look at is something called a duration field. And what that does is it calculates time around a date field. It can be an approximation. In other words, it can say, how many years has this company been incorporated to the closest year? Or it can be exact. How many years, months has it been since they incorporated? So if you need an exact time element or an approximate time element where you're going to the closest year, or the number of days past a date. Say, for example, someone has some sort of a term element to the relationship with you where they need to pay 30 days, maybe they're net 30 from your billing department. You can look at the number of days past there. So we're going to call this one, for simplicity's sake, years since incorporation. It's like a formula field in that we pick a date field by clicking on the Insert Field button, and we go into our user-defined fields area, incorporation date. We click OK, and it's really that simple. Now, it's going to say attributes, calculation method. So do we want the actual age since incorporation, or do we want the nearest age? And I'm going to say we're going to go for actual age as opposed to the closest age. So there's some industries like the insurance industry where they say, okay, when is somebody turning 50 years old or 55 years old or 52 years old? And actual age isn't as important as closest age because the year that the insurance is being acquired is in the year that that person turns that age. So we can show it in terms of years for actual age, years, months, days, or days. We're going to select years, months, and days. We could set it to hidden, but we're not going to, and we'll make it public so everybody can see it who has access to this database. Click Save. Okay, so there you have it. We've created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 types of user-defined fields. Let me zoom in there for a sec so you can just see that a little better. If we were to close this now, if we went to the user-defined fields area for this contact, we now have all these user-defined fields. So if we put in the incorporation date here, let's say they incorporated April 1st, and we'll go back to 2003. And let's say we're doing the estimated first year spend is $1,000, let's just say, and we can place this contact likes to eat. Let's just say sushi. Is this a current customer? Yes. Comment on favorite food might be MSG. And the calculation fields, this one's still 0, they'll all update as soon as we save this. So essentially we click away, we go back, and it's updated. I don't know if you can see that. Let me zoom in one more time. So you can just see these have filled in. It did the calculation, and it did the years since incorporation calculation in here as well. So the next thing we're going to do is go over and put these into a key field set so that the information shows up right here next to our contact information for convenience. We want to be able to modify these user-defined fields on the fly. Let's say you go into Manny's record and you go in here and let's say you need to change this phone number, and he's now going to give you their general line with an extension. And while you're here, you're thinking, oh, I should fill in some of these fields. And so there's this area called key fields. So key fields are essentially a subsets of fields right here in the main form you can fill in. And you can modify which fields you can put here. So you can have as many user-defined fields as you like back over here in the user-defined fields area. But it's just sometimes having to go and dig them out over in this other tab is less convenient than having them show right here. So if we wanted to create a set of fields for Manny Portez, or actually for all contacts, because he's a contact here at this company called Bombastic Symbols, we could go to Administrator, and the Administrator tab opens over here, and you can click on this Key Fields item, and you get a list of all the different combinations of key fields. But if you don't have access to the administrator, no problem. You can actually just click on this cog and create your own set of key fields to show up right here. And you just select Customize Key Fields. And we know that Manny Portez is a contact record back here. So we have selected contact. These are the fields that are currently showing in our key field set. So if we went if we could go behind here, we would see the key fields back here are these ones here. We don't actually want to use this set. We want to create a completely new set for the sake of our example today. So we're going to click Cancel. We're back to that big list that we saw in the administrator window. We're going to add a new set of fields. Call this the Contact Details March 28th. If you wanted everybody to have access to this set of fields as a set, they can drop down in a contact record. You'd set it to public. You could put in a description, details about meeting with this customer. And you just click Save and it gets added to this master list and it's right here. You can always go back in, you just click on it. And to add the key fields, you just click on this tab back here that says Key Fields. You make sure you define the contact type of record, and you just click the Add Fields button. Now remember, these fields that we're adding to this view will be specific to the contact type of record. Maximizer has the three main types of records. Company records, which are more kind of global company information, and then contacts at that company, more specific about the person at that company, and then individuals, people who might sit in the database independent of company records. So then we just pick our folder here, and it's this simple. We just select the items and click Insert down at the bottom. Corporation date, insert, 5-year estimated spend. It doesn't really matter the order you select them in because we can change it afterwards. Places this contact likes to eat. Is it a current customer? And you click Insert. Notice that when you have it selected, it highlights right here. You click Close, and now we've got the set. Now they would appear just in this order, which is fine. If we want to move them around, however, we can use the arrow keys. We can move this one over here. Is this a current customer? Probably should be at the top. Yeah, we might move that one up just one. If we want to put a header on one of these, we just simply click Add Group Title. That's right there. And we could name this, say, Spend Details. We could also put one right here, Add Group Title, something like that. We can move that up too, and we could call this Lunch Details, something like that. You can also put in what's called a separator line, which is just a divider for visibility reasons. Some people like to use those instead of the headers. You can use both. When you're happy with this, you just click Save, and it's basically updated this particular one here. We can click the Close button at the bottom down here, bottom right-hand corner, and now we'll have that option of those items laid out this way. And you can have as many as you like going down the page. Custom sets of key fields are very useful. Once people know they're there, they tend to ramp up the use. So if we had details here, we could put this in, say we'll put this back to 2008 and say Manny likes fast food. Say we likes burgers, something like that. Estimated first year spend, let's say $17,000. Is this a current customer? Yes. And again, when you hit save, so we get everything calculated in. That's how you set up your key field sets. The next thing we're going to look at is the Outlook integration. And the Outlook integration is very useful for those people who use Microsoft Outlook. I'm going to open up Microsoft Outlook in a minute, but first I'm going to run the installation. And a lot of people ask about this. Can you please show how to install the Outlook integration? It doesn't take very long. Again, it's in the desktop and mobile setup area of Maximizer to download. If you click on desktop and mobile setup, it takes you to the downloads area. You'll notice this is also where our mobile access links are, so if you wanted to email this out to your smartphone device. But for now, we're just going to click the Download Outlook Integration link right here. Just before this runs, I want to point out there's a video on how to install this right there. You can see where I've clicked and selected. So if you forget any of this, you can always look. This takes just a couple seconds to actually run the install. We're going to save it first. I'm going to do a save as. I'm going to put it in my downloads, and as you can see, I've downloaded this before. I'm going to go March 28th. In my downloads, takes less than 10 seconds to download. If I wanted to, I can hit run. Again, you want to do this with Outlook closed. That's the number one mistake most people make, is they don't close Outlook before running the integration for Outlook. And you can't see this. I get a message on my screen that says, do you want to allow the following application to install something on your computer? And I click yes. And it's a wizard-driven thing, so it's a next install. So I just click finish, and now I'm going to open up Outlook. So I've got Outlook 2010 installed on this computer. I happen to have two different profiles. I'm going to load my demo profile, and you'll see that it says the add-in for Microsoft Outlook is now loading. When you first open the Outlook integration, you'll get this, welcome to the Outlook integration for Maximizer CRM Live. Thank you for installing. This wizard walks you through the process of setting up the address book from the Maximizer CRM Live to Outlook integration. So it just needs to know what the name of your database is to connect to via the web. You can uncheck this after you've run this a couple times if you don't want to see it again. You just click next. Basically, the name of your database, when you originally set up your database, or your database administrator will have the name of your database, it's always got this same string, https:// and then cawmaximizercrmlive.com, and then the name of your database. This one happens to be called the Maximizer Training Base. So you'll be able to find the name of your database. Just in case you're curious, it's right here. It's this portion of the URL back in your mobile access setup. So if you've forgotten what the name of your database is, it's either going to be in the link that you click on to get into Maximizer, or you can, if you can get into Maximizer, it's also here down in the mobile access area of this. Again, this is the desktop and mobile setup option, which is right here. So going back to Outlook, once you have your name of your database here, you click next. It's going to ask you for your user ID and your password. That will facilitate automatic saving from Outlook into Maximizer. Click next. I recommend you check off all these items, certainly the top three. This is just going to allow you to confirm when you're saving an email and when you're creating a new record, because it has the ability of creating a new record in Maximizer from the email address in Outlook that you've received from that person. It's going to prompt you and let you know if they already exist in the database if you have this one checked off. And include attachments at the top here. If you're saving an email, oftentimes you want to save those attachments all at the same time. Confirm when saving email. Again, this is going to let you confirm which record in Maximizer you're saving the email to. Just convenience things, I'd recommend you check all these off, and that one as well. The type of record, depending on whether you like to create company records with contacts at that company or whether you like to just create individuals in your database, you choose the default format here. You can always change it on the fly, that's not a problem. Click next. This is the synchronization frequency. So if you're going to synchronize the calendar in Outlook with the calendar in Maximizer, or the tasks or the contacts that are in Outlook, you would select a frequency here for synchronization. You can always leave it as never, and you can do a manual synchronization when you choose to do so by clicking the synchronization button. I'll show you that in a minute. Click next. If you wanted to say, I want to synchronize my appointments going back 5 days and forward 2 weeks, that would be the date range for synchronization. One caveat on this, common mistake people make, is they will go back for 12 months and forward 12 months. That's going to be a really big synchronization. It's going to take longer. I'd recommend you keep it to weeks just to be on the safe side, or days. You can always have it synchronized every hour, and if it synchronizes every 10 minutes or every hour or even once a day, you're going to capture everything you need to know for the next few weeks. We are not going to set up synchronization of tasks right now. It's the same thing with the date range. Synchronizing address book entries requires that you've applied a group in Outlook to the contacts you want to have synchronized from Outlook into Maximizer, and you specify a favorites list. So you got these lists in Maximizer called favorites lists. You'd have to add people to that list to synchronize them over to Outlook. So you kind of have a list in Maximizer to synchronize to Outlook and a special list in Outlook called Maximizer to synchronize back again. I'm not going to set that up. We're going to turn that off for now. You'll notice down here, if you really want, you can do this. I don't know if you can read this or not. It says delete the matching Outlook contact when the Maximizer entry is no longer synchronized. If it's not that important for you to keep the contacts in Outlook current, once you delete someone in Maximizer, it kind of means they're gone. We're not going to do this right now, but you can always ask questions about those selections on your synchronization. We click Finish. We just give it a second. Now you'll notice, oh, I've already got an appointment here. Let's dismiss that one. So you'll notice you'll have a Maximizer tab up here. You'll also notice when you create a new email, you click the new email button just like you would normally, and you send it to J. Napoli. Let's send it to Ian McPhail at Maximizer Training. You can still drop in your signature like that. And you'll notice your message, you've got this option to send and save to contact, send and save to opportunity, send and save to a customer service case. Or you can just click the top half of the button and it does this little thing where it tries to find those contacts. So it says, oh, wow, okay, this email address that you're sending to, or these email addresses, they exist in multiple records. So this is that part where I said you get to, if you have the preference selected, you get to pick who you get to save it to, as you may have the same people in multiple records, such as professional relationships between professional advisors and the companies you do business with. So we're going to actually save this to Manny Portez. Actually, we'll keep that one. We'll take that one off. Click OK, and away the email goes. So there it is coming into the inbox, and here's the email we just sent. Now I can also save this back to the record. So the one, when we use the send option just now, if let's say I create this again, training, I'll drop in a signature, send email and save to Maximizer, or we can just click the top half of the button and hit send. Again, it will find those same people. Let's take that one off. If the person whose record you want to save it to doesn't show up. So in other words, you're sending it to a person's email address, but you want to save it to his in-house counsel, but that person's not on this email, but you still want to save the email you're sending. You can click this Search Address Book Entries link. Let's say their last name is Wood. And you can select that person and add them to the list of contacts in Maximizer who will have this email saved against their record. Okay, and away it goes. So in the Maximizer tab, you have a few other things as well. You've got a button to view this contact in Maximizer. It will open up that contact record for you. You've got an option to create a task for that person whose email you've selected. Kind of handy because you can quickly create a task in Maximizer. Maybe you've got the email, you don't have time to deal with it right now, but you want to create the task to remind you to do something later on. You can create a new contact. So this will actually initiate the creation of a new contact in the database. Maybe you've never received an email from this person before and you want to put them into Maximizer. Very, very good time-saving tool. Create a customer service case. We're going to talk about those in just a bit. And here's your save options. Again, you can save this incoming email to an address book entry, a specific opportunity which designates revenue you're anticipating, so you can kind of keep almost like a project approach to that opportunity, and or you can save it to a customer service case. You've also got these options to save and track. So let's say you're going to have a lot of interaction, a back and forth thread in regards to this email thread. You could go save and track messages sent to and from this email address forever, or at least until you decide not to, and save and track messages in this thread. When we select this, it says, okay, so Joe Napoli at Mondavi Hermitage is going to have all the emails in this thread saved to his record. Click OK. If you ever wonder if you're tracking somebody's email already, you can click the View Tracking List. And it will show you a list of items. Here, let's take this email address. We'll do Save and Track Messages. Click OK. And the difference is this is saving on this thread. So when the thread ends, you can click Stop Tracking this thread. On this one, you can say View Tracking List. And you can see that you're tracking everything for this person, automatically saving the emails as really message files or documents back to the record for Joe Napoli. Back on the desktop and mobile setup window, you'll notice we just covered the Outlook integration. You'll notice you have video help for the Outlook integration. If any of that you missed, you can go through it. There's also a brief description. If you click on the view more information for all of our integrations, you get more information and instructions for installing. The videos are also available in our video tutorials area, and you just look for installing the Outlook integration as one of the video tutorials. It's in there. Or you can click on this link, video help, and watch a video presentation how to install the Outlook integration. And the next thing we're going to look at is the Microsoft Word integration. So as long as you grab Microsoft Word 2007, 2010, 2013, or 2016, the requirements are here. I don't know if you can see the link, View System Requirements. You can use the Microsoft Word integration. I'm just going to download and install that now. Again, video presentation of how to do this if you miss anything, if I go too fast. But you click on the Download Word Integration link. And again, it's asking if you want to run. I always save it just because I like to have it already downloaded. And we're going to call it the March 28th. And I just go save. I'm going to save it to my download. It takes less than 10 seconds to download. If I want, I can click run. The thing to remember here with the Word integration is it actually likes you to close Internet Explorer. So I'm going to log out of Maximizer. And I'm going to close the browser. So it needs both Microsoft Word to be closed and Internet Explorer to be closed. And again, the Microsoft Word integration only works with Internet Explorer. So if I went to my download, there it is. I'm going to double click it. Probably can't see this on my screen. It says, do you want to allow the following program to make changes to your computer? Yes. And it detects what version of Word you're using automatically. It's a wizard. I just click next. I have to accept the conditions. Feel free to read the whole thing. And I click install. So the installation of the Microsoft Word integration, just takes about a minute or so. When I click finish, the best way to check and see if you've got it is just log back in. Just make sure it installed correctly. We just log in. And from within Maximizer, you can click on the Microsoft Word button if it shows up. Or let's bring up one of our contacts. You'll notice the buttons are grayed out when you don't have any contacts up because it thinks you typically want to take a contact and use Word or Excel with that. So now I can click Microsoft Word. It says, do you want to allow the following program to connect to your database? And the first thing you'll notice is when you open up a blank document in Microsoft Word is you've got this new tab at the top. The Microsoft Word integration is handy for things like if you want to create an envelope, and essentially you can generate an envelope with the current record. Actually, let's make sure I got a record selected here. Normally I like to put the check mark next to the item, and you get to pick, again, I just click the envelope button. You get to pick which size envelope you're using, and you click OK, and it merges the data onto the envelope. Similarly, labels, if you need to print a label, and you just click Generate Mailing Labels, pick the product of labels that you've purchased, the number of labels per page, produces a label. It also has a custom start position, so if you've already used a sheet of labels, you can go back and start in position number 10 if you like. That was part of the sequence for the labels. We just skipped over it. More commonly, we have people using these for contracts. So a lot of times we demonstrate how to create a template for the Microsoft Word integration. Let's say we're doing a conference thank you letter. So someone attended a conference that we attended and they came to our booth. We might want to write a letter to them. So you'll notice there's this merge field button up here. You simply go merge in first name, and this becomes a merge field in your template. So let's go merge in that information. I've got a body of an email or a letter right here, pre-done to save time. You could paste in the body of your letter here. Maybe you'll need to adjust a couple things. And once you have the body of your letter in, you can Put your signature at the bottom, sincerely. The merge tool lets you click either the bottom half for the most common merge fields for the contact in the database, or you can click the top half, and that gives you all the fields in your Maximizer database to merge in, or at least most of them, not all. If you want to put details about yourself, like in your signature, it's going to be your information, not the contact's information that's merged in. You just switch this to user, and it shows all of my information. So I can put in my first name, and I just put a space and my last name. Hit enter. Maybe I'll put my company. Actually, let's put in my position, my company there. Last but not least, say my phone number. When you're happy with the letter, you click close. And there's really two ways you can save this. You can go create new template, update an existing template. So if this is a letter already you've created as a template, you can overwrite it with what is here. So I can go create new template, and I'll call this the conference thank you March 2017, something like that. So now this letter will be available as a template. If I want to see what it's going to look like, I can use the preview button. Takes the selected record and it shows that data merged in. I can also select multiple records here. So if I pull in a few other contacts, Tim Rogers, David Costin, and I can just do a select all on these here. Let's zoom down there. Select all. I go and do the preview again. Dear David, I can check the next record. Dear Liz, Dear Tim, I'm just shuffling through. Oh, I got to the bottom of the list. It lets me know. That's nice. And I can also send this to the printer by just clicking Print Selected Entries. And that option will do the merge step of all these selected records and print them all in one shot. Or I can say just print the current entry, so the first one. Let's say I hit preview, let's say I'm here. I can also save this back to the Maximizer entry. So that would save it back to Tim's record. If I go Tim, I give it a name, conference, thank you, okay. And when I go back into Maximizer and I go to Tim's record, I should be able to go to the documents area, and there is the thank you document saved. If I click open, bang, there's his letter. So as you can see, the word integration is quite handy. Here, if I want to see my list of templates, I can click on the template letter. So here's my one I did today. I could pull up that conference letter again. I could update the template by clicking Update Existing Template. Last but not least, once you have your template created, you can go to a record in Maximizer, and it's as easy as this. You can either go to the Actions menu and go Merge to Document, or you can right-click and you could select the option to merge to document there, and it lets you pick which document you want to merge that data to. Yeah, so the question came up, are you able to do a batch printing of letters and envelopes? So yeah, you could have both for envelopes and the letter. You can just go print selected entries. If you want to print one for each of these people, you could have 100 of them if you want. It doesn't matter how many you've got. Similarly, if you want to do labels or envelopes, you could say labels, you can put in special characters, add an additional text for the note, add a custom field to go on the label, customize label start position, that's one I like. Click generate label, select the vendor, it might be Avery, it might be Microsoft, it might be any one of those label companies. Select the type of sheet that you've got so it has the dimensions there. When you click OK, it just asks you, let's say you've already used half a sheet, so we go to position number 16, click OK, and it's merged into that point on the label. You can do the same thing with envelopes if you like. We're just going to take a look at what is the Opportunities module. In the Opportunities module, this is where you're going to record future revenue. And you can search the opportunities area based on details like the close date. Let's say I want to see all opportunities that have a close date range of January 1st and April 30th. Maybe I'm the manager and I need to see what opportunities be entered. The value proposition of the opportunities window is you spent this time developing a relationship. Depending on the business you're in, it can be extremely valuable to know what revenue you have coming up, what things you're working on, which companies you're working on them with, the process you're applying to try and get them to that point of purchasing something, or if it's an ongoing cycle of revenue the stage of the process that you're in. All of these aspects of visibility on revenue contribute to predictability in your business. Now, in a perfect world, if you want to put on your management consulting hats, everything about your business would be totally predictable. But the truth is, business is never as predictable as we want it to be. There are some things we can control and other things we can't. And the goal of the opportunities window is to show a record of what we're working on. So we can kind of set it and forget it and come back to it, and we'll pick up right where we left off. And also it provides an opportunity to kind of put some process and some structure around how we attain that revenue the last quarter mile. Like that last little bit, maybe you've established the relationship, you've done all the right things, and that last little bit, you just need to make sure you steer that home. And so the opportunities tool can help you to do that. You basically have the status of an opportunity. So it's in progress, or it's a one opportunity, or maybe you abandoned it, or maybe you lost it to somebody else. Maybe the company decided not to spend money in that area, or they pushed their budget to next year. But you have something called a status. Every opportunity has to have at least one leader, one person in your organization. If you're a sole proprietor, that's always going to be you. Every opportunity has what's called an objective. You need to define either a company or an individual who the opportunity is with. And then you get to set up something called stages. So let's just run this search just so we don't have quite so many opportunities here. So we've got 18 opportunities displayed in various conditions of status, and it shows the people. And you'll notice you've got these great tools like export to Excel. So if you went like this and selected them all, say you had to take this to a meeting, there is a column setup option here. For those of you who took the basic class, you understand that means you can change what information shows up here all the way across. And it shows us the age of the opportunities from when you created them, and there's some things to do with target stages for the age of the opportunities. Now all this can be defined. I'm going to create an opportunity in a second, a new one. All this can be defined in the administrator. So if we jump back over here and we look at our preferences for opportunities, click on opportunities here, and we've got our processes. So let's say you have a sales team and you always want them to establish an understanding of the business need. You might have a process where you make suggestions and you hear the customer confirm their business need and define it for them, prove to them that you understand their business. Then maybe you put a presentation together, maybe a proposal of some sort. Just depends on your business. So we let you define the process and the stages in that process. In this particular process, we call it our default process. You can add a stage to your process here. This process, we call this the very beginning. The very beginning probability of close is 1%. Our target age for this stage is 7 days. So in the first 7 days, you got to get to the very beginning once, say, you get a lead. The second stage is initial communication. We've got that at 15%. Needs assessment, 30% presentation format, basically understanding how you're going to present and when that's going to take place. Negotiation. Negotiations are involved. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Maybe it's set price, maybe it's units, maybe it's multiple. Commitment to buy, 79%. And once everything is fulfilled and delivered, 100%. So that's just one process. You can put in other processes as you see fit. You can also take advantage of something called monitoring. Opportunity monitoring basically says if Ian McPhail makes changes to that opportunity, so you can select someone else. When Christina Donato creates an opportunity or makes changes to an opportunity, I want a notification by email. Maybe you're the manager. Completion reasons. So in the opportunity, I'm going to show this to you in a second. Completion reasons. Why did we win that business? You can define that and start keeping track of your success factors. Was it functionality? Was it price? Was it a relationship thing? You did a better job. You can add additional values there. Reasons why you abandoned an opportunity. Change of ownership. No response, political battle, wrong technical fit, or whatever those are. You can add and modify that list simply by clicking on Add New Value. Keep in mind that this is all available in the Administrator's Guide under User Guide, Administrator's Guide, and Opportunities. Let's create an opportunity from scratch. Let's say I was working with this person back in the address book here. Actually, let's say it's Liz Montgomery. So we'll deselect these ones. We'll just have her selected. And we might even go edit, make selected list current, just so we have her record showing. And we might want to go to the company level record and go search, retrieve, company individual. Oftentimes organizations will want their people to create the opportunities at the company record level because you're actually doing business with the company, and then the contact can be added to the opportunity. And you can right click and select create an opportunity, or you can go to the actions menu, select create an opportunity, and a new window opens. Now every opportunity needs an objective, and you can predefine these in a list. I'm going to say this is a consulting contract, or you can just freeform type this in if that's easier. The benefit of putting an objective list, like a list of objectives with opportunities, is you can filter that based on the types of objectives that you as a manager want to see. So if you can say, I got a lot of consulting contracts versus I got a lot of training contracts, you can sort them that way later on. So we'll say 60 hours of consulting, management, and advisory. You might say this is in progress. In fact, by default, when you create the opportunity, I'll set to in progress. You can say you're the leader of the opportunity. You can say here's the start date, here's the close date, very, very important. Here's the goal end date that we anticipate. Even if you don't know when it's going to close, you can say this is my target close date. It'll start counting days from when you start. If there's other details that you've created in user-defined fields like preferred supplier, maybe you're trying to snatch this business away from one of your competitors. Let's just go IT specialist. Next action might be phone call. Again, you can have your list. Your contact at that company is Liz Montgomery. If there were sort of products, you could say business consulting, and you get to define all these fields again back in the administrator. So you get to put some structure around this opportunity. It really tells a story. We'll say default process. We'll say we've already done a needs assessment and we're feeling pretty confident about this. We click save and it gets added to a master list of opportunities. So because we put in a close date of June 30th, we can sort and say, oh, what else do I have going on in June? Oh, I don't have much closing in June. I might be able to analyze this and say, I need to do some work because I've got April, March, February, January. I have nothing happening in May. I better get cracking. So as I look at this as a list of opportunities, I can narrow this down. Let's say I only want to look at April and June. I can select this one, go down here, select this one, go to edit, make selected list current. Now I'm looking at these opportunities, and if someone said to me, what do you have coming down the pipe? I could say, well, I've got a lot in April. I know that some of this is going to push into May, and I'm anticipating that. And I got this one in June. What does that mean in terms of dollars? And let's say I need to update this particular opportunity. It shows me the stage that I'm in up here, so it gives me a nice visual indicator as to how far along I am. I can go in and actually add activities. So let's say I need to put in a task. This is an action plan library with a set of tasks. So if you have a set process you want to apply, you can say, I want to apply a whole series of tasks. These have already been preset, or I might want to add additional tasks to this set. It's a very rapid way of putting together your tasks. Or you can click select an individual, produce an individual task, put together presentation for budget meeting you were invited to. I can add notes that are unique to this opportunity. I can add documents that are unique to this opportunity. So as I get paperwork signed or a letter of intent, I can add that here. And what we're creating is this one-to-many relationship. So multiple opportunities for, say, one company. If that happens, you can separate them and produce structure and format around that. I've got some tools here for reporting. If I wanted to produce a pipeline report for that date range, I can select pipeline report. All I have to do is say I'm using the default process, click generate report up here, and it produces this pipeline report. This just is one more way for me to analyze this. I see this is page 1 of 2. and it shows me all my opportunities. So if I had to run into a meeting, I can always take this with me and say, these are the opportunities I'm working on, and this is what I've got going on. The question was asked about defining what was perhaps transacted or purchased in the opportunity. You would essentially set that up as user-defined fields you'd add to your key fields area. You could either do that based on user-defined fields you create. Maybe you create a list of products they might have purchased in this opportunity, and you could also define that over here in the administrator. If you went into products and services here, you could put in a list of different products that were actually selected in that opportunity. The last thing I want to point out is customer service and customer support area here. What this is really a process of keeping track of inquiries. Let's say I've provided the training to this company X, and let's say they contact me and say, when you did the training portion of your consulting for us, you promised you'd send us transcripts from a conference that you went to. So let's say Liz calls up my company, I'm not available, I'm the person who helped and did the consulting, or I sold the products, or whatever that is, and she calls in and says, hey, Ian promised us some transcripts of a conference he attended and spoke at. And then you could quite literally go into this record, either go to Actions, create a case, a customer support case, or you can right-click on Liz's record and select Create a Case. And you get a window very similar to the Opportunities window. It's got its own user-defined fields that you can set up, and you put in a subject request for transcripts at conference Ian spoke at. So let's say my person at the front desk, reception, whatever you want to call it, called in and said, Liz still doesn't have the transcripts from the 2017 conference Ian spoke at in Las Vegas. And you can put details in that you want to give this responsibility to Ian to get that back to them. You can put in things like how did they reach out to you. You can have different sets of key fields just like any of the other modules in Maximizer. Probably the most important thing is you can put a follow-up deadline on here. Let's say this happened on Friday and the follow-up deadline is the 27th. If there's any billable time for this follow-up, you'd put it in there. Products and services, consulting, business consulting. So again, these are the same options you saw in the opportunity. They can be defined back in the area called system fields, consulting basic, and there's no billing, complimentary. And when you're done, what happens is it gets added to a list of inquiries. So why is this important? Well, it's surprising how many times things fall through the cracks when you get a lot of inquiries. As your business scales, or even if it doesn't scale and you just want to maintain a record of all your communication, you can say this was an inquiry. It generated a case number. It was with company X, and it was actually with somebody named Liz Montgomery right here. And what it does is it starts this elapsed time timer. So this is new, and then it shows the age of these. And as someone managing a business, being able to have visibility of inquiry, see how quickly things are being responded to, you can add notes. It can put in a task. Just make sure we task over to Ian to do this. Liz, looking for your talk transcript. Vegas 2017, and assign it to Ian, or I could assign it to somebody else. It puts a task on it. And as a business owner, to be able to go in and make sure your people are following a process might not seem like really obvious, but once you get several dozen or hundreds of these inquiries, you can see the progress that your organization makes in terms of process around following up. So let's say I can go in here to the contacts, to send this email, write an email to Liz. I can attach my file with my transcripts. I can go close, transcripts attached. Hi Liz, thanks for your patience. See attached. And it actually gets saved not only to the record in Maximizer, but also to this customer support case. Now I can go into the details. I can say, I'm going to resolve this, put in a note, sent transcripts completed. And you'll notice if I go to the documents area that if I wanted, I could add additional documents. Maybe I'll add the transcript here, browse, desktop, maximize, just so that it's close at hand. If anybody calls in, You can also set up notifications on all these so that the people listed here gets a confirmation email when it's completed, and it just looks so professional at the end of the day. The customer service module allows you just greater control over your inquiry process and can really help you follow up on those things that people inquire about.
And so here we're just going back into the database. You'll notice here we've got this notification that came up. This is what's called a notification toaster. So how did we get this to come up here as a notification? Well, basically a notification in our new notification manager will show you when important data changes in the database. When a certain field gets filled in, you can have one of these toasters pop up. And this is how that works. So the new notification manager is a new item here in the administration area. It says notification manager. You just click on that. And here you'll notice that you've got a general, is it on or is it off? So you can turn everything off all at once. It is on. We go down here. We see we can create notifications for changes in address book data, changes in our revenue opportunities, when certain threshold information is achieved in our customer service case management. So if a customer service case gets created and assigned, you'll see that. And of course, you can create notifications for your basic alarms for meeting appointments and for tasks as well. So you can have it anything from tasks to actual field data changes, and those notifications will pop up. So let's create a new one here. We'll put in an opportunities notification. We can look at an existing one here if we wanted to, or we can add a new notification. We go add notification, and we can call this notification opportunity over X number of dollars. So then from there, we just decide when we want this to trigger. So whenever something changes in an opportunity, or when we create a new opportunity. In this case, we're going to say when a new opportunity gets created, and I'm going to check off that we want to be notified even if I was the person who made the change. We click next, and we adjust the conditions. So we can say we want to pick a very specific field when the actual revenue is achieved. So actual revenue being what the final revenue is versus what the forecasted revenue was when you first created the opportunity. We click OK, and we want to trigger this value when exact matches versus greater than. So we're going to say greater than a certain dollar amount, and we're going to say over 5,000, and that could be any amount you like. If you want to add a second condition to the trigger, you can just click it here. Otherwise, you just click next, and this is where you might put in a note: this opportunity exceeded expectations over our normal, or whatever you want to type in here. You can also choose what color this is going to show as. So if you prefer green as a success item, if it was a case where, say, a certain type of warranty issue, you wanted to be notified every time a certain warranty issue came up, you could say a cautionary color just to grab your attention more effectively. This time we're going to leave it as blue, and we can toggle on display this notification as a toaster pop-up. Yes. Keep the toaster displayed until I say to close it, like this one up here. And you want to play a sound when the notification gets created. That's totally optional. And your notification is turned on. So we know we have everything set for this notification to trigger. And then we click finish. So whether you've entered the data into the system and then something's happened that is representative of something significant happening in your database or your opportunities management or your customer service case management, you will have visibility above and beyond the basic notifications. You'll have this toaster pop out right here, and it will wait for you to address this. Now, when we click through on it, it takes us to that specific opportunity that was created and highlights it for us, so we can see the details. So from there, you can decide how you want to use this. Keep in mind, we also have a great video on the subject in our video session. So if you have any questions about this, let me know.
Last but not least, today we're going to look at the desktop and mobile setup area. We're going to look at getting the mobile link out to your smartphone device. Now, customers who use the mobile link, they give it a few weeks of using it, and they love it. They can't stop using it. You can email yourself a copy of that link to use on your mobile device. Just think of an email address you can pick up on your smartphone, iPhone, Android, pretty much any smartphone device as long as it's got a smart interface. Go allow, and you literally, it creates this option, just sends out an email to your mobile device. You click send, and or You can actually just click on the link right here to see what it looks like. So I recommend you try that at some time. You put in your password and you've got all your main modules here, dashboards, which is quite impressive once they're set up. So let's say I needed to find Joe Napoli. Let's just put in his last name. I can search real quick, find him. I can click here, get an email out to him. I just click on his email address, contact time. Maybe it's less formal. Maybe I met him. He said, drop me your contact details. Here's my email address. I click the send button up here and bang, I've got an email out to him. Here's my little home button in the top left-hand corner. And those are all the modules you can get to. So you can look at opportunities. You can search by company or the status. You can have saved searches, bring up lists of different people you're working with. I'd encourage you to take a look at that mobile option when you get a chance. It can be very useful. It can be a real lifesaver if you don't have your computer and you need to get in touch with somebody. Having it set up is kind of handy.